time and life. This is my lady's. These be her very seas, her ewes, and her teas. And thus makes she her great peas. 'Tis in contempt of questioner.
Her C's, her U's, and her T's. Why that?
To the unknown beloved, this and my good wishes. Was her very phrases.
This wings him liver and all.
Jove knows I love, but who? Lips do not move, no man must know. No man must know. No man must know. Oh, Malvolio, if this should be thee.
Well, each of the Shakespeares, of course, is uniquely different, and they all go on their unique journey. None of them are the same at the end of the play as they were at the beginning of the play. And what's wonderful about this part is the dichotomy between this almost fascistic Puritan and a buffoon, an absolute horse's ass, an idiot who gets his comeuppance. So the thing is I can't really think of him as a funny part, although indeed some of it, please God, it will be very funny. He must be deadly serious in his peregrinations. You know, Puritans, they're always so bloody serious, aren't they? Really.
I'd wanted to be a part of this theatre since I first heard about its formation. Mm-hmm. This was, in those days, in all of our imagination, was to be the great American classical company. This was going to be the answer to the National, or the Royal Shakespeare Company of England. Mm-hmm. And Guthrie had invested a lot in this community and loved it a lot. And to work with him was an extraordinary experience. Mm-hmm. 6'6" tall, terribly, terribly refined and beautifully spoken, with the mouth of a sailor on him. We use all kinds of wonderfully colourful language. And would say things to you like, "Astonish me in the morning, dear boy."
Right.
And you, of course, would go home and think, how can I astonish him? How can I surprise him? What can I?
Right, right.
So he had the effect, really, of lifting everybody off the floor a few inches when he was around. So it was a place that was always locked in my imagination as a very special place, and still holds that for me today.
Now now at the Guthrie, you obviously are playing Malvolio in Shakespeare. Now you did work at the Royal Shakespeare Company. Mm-hmm. Can you talk a little bit about how you regard Shakespeare as a writer, from the point of view of an actor? What dimensions or what values do you find in his writing for you as an actor?
Oh, well, I mean, you begin with Johnson's line, "This side idolatry." I mean, that's it. He is a god to me. Bloom's written a book this year that came out last year, a fabulous book called The Invention of the Human, mm-hmm. and positing the notion that indeed the humanity as we know it mm-hmm. almost begins with Shakespeare.
Right.
You know, when you think of Shakespeare's vocabulary, I believe the most recent studies indicate he had a vocabulary of something like 22,000 words. Mm-hmm. Milton, the poet, mm-hmm. 8,000. Mm-hmm. And he was no bloody slouch,
right,
you know. Right. Not that I'm terribly fond of him. But Shakespeare, the humanist, mm-hmm. and that's the extraordinary thing about him. It's difficult in schools because it's difficult on teachers and it's difficult on students. The teacher begins, "Oh, Shakespeare's so wonderful," just like hearing me say, "Oh, Shakespeare's a god." Prove it, the kid's gonna say, and why not? If we were in a classroom together for a half an hour, I would. Because basically you have to experience him. You either experience him by doing it or by seeing it. By studying it in the classroom is not what the original intention was. However interesting and absorbing it may be, The original intention was for it to be played and experienced by an audience, something that was alive. So, what do I say about him? Well, you become his slave in a funny kind of way. There is no other poet. There is no other dramatist. There is no other philosopher, thinker. There is no other humorist or ironist who is as is complete. Much as I love Yeats, Eliot, Dylan Thomas, all of these giants as they are aren't on the same scale as the Parnassus that W.S. resides over.
Right, right.
Make an ale house out of my lady's house. But just squeak out your cosiest catches without any mitigation or remorse of voice. Have you no respect of place, persons, not time in you?
Oh, we did keep time, sir. With our catches.
Particular conception you have here of this Guthrie's Malvolio, he has a certain Scottish identity. Can you talk about why is he a Scot, and why do you think it works for him to be a Scot in this particular?
All right. Well, in practical terms, when Joe first said was interested in me doing Malvolio, and I immediately thought of the cross-gartering scene. Well, what are we going to do with that? Because that's the problem. I mean, if you set it in a setting other than Elizabethan. So I was sitting in California, I was going over the text, and some of the text is intriguing because the way the character is written, he seems to be written with some kind of an accent. One little speech, he comes down in the middle of the evening when Toby and Andrew Aguecheek and Mariah and Festi are all singing songs, and you know, Malvolio is the Puritan. He doesn't like songs or drink or any of those things that most of us in this life enjoy. But you always have to be aware of Puritans, you know that. So he comes down and he has this speech where he says, "My masters, are you mad or what are you? Have you no wit, manners, nor honesty, but to gabble like tinkers at this time of night? Do ye make an alehouse out of my lady's house, that ye squeak out your cosiest catches without any mitigation or remorse of voice? Is there no respect of place, persons, nor time in you?" The use of the word ye, it's very, very interesting. None of the other characters use it in the play. And suddenly putting it in your mouth and tasting it, and I thought, yes. And of course, giving the contemporary setting relatively that Joe has set the play in late 20s, early 30s. And if we made him a Scot, the cross-gartering scene would be solved by him coming in a kilt.
Right.
So it was really a happy set of what is it, the Japanese potter Shoji Hamada said he was always looking for the happy accident when he was throwing a piece of pottery.
Right, right, right.
And I think this is one of those happy accidents, really, because I don't think it's an imposition on the text. I think it has come out of the text. Just as I think that Dowling's production, set on a Hollywood soundstage, has also come out of the text, really. He hasn't violated the text in any way. He's provided a context. And so this is a very recognizable character. I think he's a steward, a butler of the household, and fancies he should have a higher position and be married to his lady, and dresses up for the occasion.
Where's Malvolio? He is sad and civil and suits well for a servant, my fortunes. Where is Malvolio?
He is coming, madam, but in very strange manner. He is sure possessed, madam.
Why, what's the matter? Does he rave?
No, madam, he does nothing but smile.
Come now, Malvolio.
Sweet lady. Oh.
Smile, Saddle. I sent for thee upon a sad occasion.
Sadly, I could be sad. This does make for some obstruction in the blood, this cross Guthrie. Oh, what a If it please the eye of one, it is with me as the very true sonnet is. Please one, and please all.
How dost thou, man? What is the matter with thee?
We're not black in my mind, though yellow in my legs. It did come to his hands, and commands shall be executed. I think we do know the sweet Roman plan.
Wilt thou go to bed, Malvolio?
To bed. Aye, sweetheart. And I'll come to thee.
Oh, God comfort thee. Why dost thou smile so, and kiss thy hand so often?
How do you, Malvolio?
At your request, yes. A nightingale's answer daws.
Why do you appear with this ridiculous boldness before my lady?
Be not afraid of greatness.
What meanest thou by that, Malvolio?
Some upon great,
Huh?
some achieve greatness,
What sayest thou?
and some great thrust. Oh, matters to thee. Remember who commanded thy yellow stockings.
Yellow stocking?
And wish to see thee ever cross-gartered.
Cross-gartered.
Go to, thou art made for deserts.
Am I made?
If not, let me see thee a servant still.
Oh, why, this is very midsummer madness.
One of the descriptions of poetry by Marilyn Moore was that it's an imaginary garden with real toads in it. And your character of Malvolio is the real toad who, through his own fantasy, imagines himself the prince. And I think there's a lot of the humor in that sort of transformation that is entirely going on in his own imagination on stage. I was wondering, how do you feel Shakespeare is so entertaining? So there's so much humor in Shakespeare. It's almost like what has preserved them. It's like the salt that has preserved the meat of Shakespeare to this day, 400 years later. I wonder if you could talk about the entertainment value or the humor.
Well, again, you come back to his, where does the word humor come from? But humanity, his humanus. It is the very humanity of this guy that can always have a laugh. In the middle of King Lear, you know, in the damnedest moments, there's a laugh, you know. Right. Give me that hand, let me kiss that hand, he says. It smells of humanity.
Right.
And right at times when you don't expect it, there's a laugh. Right. So I think he really tells us a great deal about the man and about the way he viewed it all. You know, the highs, the lows, the lords, the ladies, the peasants, the farmers. And he had no kind of judgment on them. He had no kind of if you could say, would you like to meet, he would be the first on the list, and probably the Nazarene would be the second for me.
Right.
But right up there alongside.
Right.
You know, these great people who have an ability to see beyond and see through.
Right. Yes.
And give us a nudge, you know, when we get so bloody serious about ourselves.
Right, absolutely.
The thing about Shakespeare is they say, what's your favorite Shakespeare role? And invariably it's the one you're doing.
Right.
So right now, Malvolio and this play is the wonder of wonders. I've done this play 3 times before, never this part. Each time you come to it, you discover a whole new set of realities within the text. You think you've done it once, you've done it, like a lot of plays, you know. But Shakespeare keeps encouraging you. The more you dig, the more you find. The more you find, the more you dig. And so it goes on. I've been very lucky. I've done some of the big ones. I did a Caliban here some years back. It wasn't bad. And Mark Antony. I've had a couple of cracks at Antony. A couple of cracks at the Scottish play. All of them you would love to revisit and do again. I think you probably need to do them 3 or 4 times. before you begin to say, aha, now I think I have an understanding. Or Prospero, I mean, you know, it's ironic. You do not say to a musician, you're going to play the Brahms violin concerto, and you're going to do it once in your lifetime. A musician would laugh his ass off at you. You know, you want to do it over and over again, and maybe when you're in your 50s or your 60s or your 70s, maybe you're going to then do it majestically. But we have this notion in classical theater in this country that, you know, that people work in television or work in film, and then they say, well, now I think I'm going to give my King Lear. Good luck, Frida.
Right.
Good luck.
Right.
You're not going to come near it, are you? How can you?
Right.
When you get one shot at it.
He left this ring behind him, would I or not? Tell him I'm none of it. Desire him not to flatter his lord, nor hold him up with hopes. I am not for him. If the youth will come this way tomorrow, I'll give him reasons for it. Heidi, Malvolio.
Madam, I will.
Ben Jonson is sometimes thought as a source for Malvolio. Did you come across that in your travels at all?
Yes, I think it's a pretty slim evidence for that. The real man that he was having a go at, of course, was William Knowles.
Oh, okay.
Who was the comptroller standing not far away from Elizabeth the very first night of the performance.
Right.
When Shakespeare's actor, whoever it was, Burbage or whoever was doing the part, was mimicking him standing over there to a fare thee well.
Right.
An absolutely incisive portrait skewering him, which everybody there in the court would have laughed their ass off.
Right.
You know, at all of these in-jokes.
Right.
He was busy trying to hustle a young woman of the court called Mary Fitton. And indeed, there's a reference to Mal's picture in the script. Will it gather dust like Mal's picture? And everybody would have suddenly known exactly what everyone was referring to. I think we've since excised that line because it doesn't really work in this. The cuts, the changes that Joe made were simply cuts. They weren't changes. And that wouldn't have any reference or any bearing now, really. But on that opening night of Twelfth Night, in front of Elizabeth I and her court, and a man called Count Orsino de Braganza, who was visiting from Venice,
Right.
who had two twins. She was laying out the red carpet for him because she wanted to form alliances in Italy that were anti-papal. And he was very sympathetic. So they laid the red carpet out for him. The Russian ambassadors, there's an account of it, they all ate dinner together that night. The Russian ambassadors went to bed, they didn't like the theater. Elizabeth and her chief honored guest, Orsino. And here Shakespeare has been told who the guest was, so he creates a character, Orsino, who has what, you know, and there are two twins in the show. He didn't have any English, and occasionally, mostly English was not spoken at dinner that night. It was French, Italian, Russian. English didn't play a major role in that. And they would occasionally lean over and whisper to him what this meant or that meant, and so on and so forth. And supposedly Shakespeare wrote this within 2-3 weeks.
Right.
An extraordinary thing.
Right.
Wrote to order, you know, we need to have something for 12th night. She's got a big guest coming. Put out.
Yes. Yeah, he was quite an amazing.
Necessity is the mother of invention.
Absolutely.
What is love? 'Tis not hereafter. Present mirth hath present laughter. What's to come is still unsure. In delay there lies no plenty. Then come kiss me, sweet and 20. Youth so stuffed will not endure.
Sample it, any of you students who are watching this. Taste it and read it aloud. Not to yourself. If you're in the shower, sitting on the loo, whatever you're doing, read the stuff aloud. Get it on your tongue. Then it means something. If music be the food of love, play on. give me excess of it. That surfeiting the appetite may sicken and so die. That strain again. It had a dying fall. Oh, it came on my ear like the sweet south that breathes upon a bank of violets, stealing and giving odor. Enough, no more. 'Tis not so sweet now as it was before.
I'll serve this duke. Thou shalt present me as a page to him. It may be worth thy pains, for I can sing and speak to him in many sorts of music that will allow me very worth his service. What else may hap, to time I will commit. Only shape thou thy silence to my wit.
What is it like working in the Guthrie as an actor? I mean, what is that rapport with the audience like? What is that sensation like?
Well, once you learn, first of all, that the audience is, once you get the idea of the audience all around you,
right,
and just learning that you need to kind of stay in the vomms a lot to interact with the other characters on stage, and getting a feel for it, just getting a feel for that, the roundness of movement. That your gestures and your movements can be very broad. Finding that relationship with the stage, and then the audience is right there.
Right,
and with the lighting that we have now, you can see them. You can see the expression on their faces. You can see how involved they are with you, or if they're getting a kick out of it. For me, it's being brave enough to really interact with the audience and really speak to them.
Right.
Because one of the things that Joe Dowling was always saying, and I think it's true, is that every time an actor's on stage with a soliloquy, they're talking to the audience.
Right.
They're engaging with the audience.
Right.
And this theater allows you, to play that. And you have to be aware on the audience on all sides of you, that it's not just always out.
Right.
You have to remember to engage and look to your left and look to your right, and just make sure that you kind of keep the energy up.
Right.
Yeah, the energy going up and out into the house.
Right.
Always making sure that your chin is up and that you're being engaged with everyone around you.
Who saw Cesario, host?
On your attendance, my lord, here.
Stand you a while aloof.
Part of the comedy, the great, wonderful Shakespearean humor that's sort of super abundant in this play, is that Viola transforms into Cesario and sort of jumps across the gender gap and becomes in sort of a male guise. Now, is that difficult to do in terms of, as you were speaking about your presentation, your movement? Was that a very difficult jump to make?
Yes, it was extremely difficult jump to make. I think Marcella worked with me so much, and I just kept focusing on Daniel Sunjata, who plays Sebastian, my twin.
Right.
Basically, the whole rehearsal process, I was just always focused on him and seeing his gestures and trying to imitate, really. So it went from a stage of imitating him, imitating his walk, imitating just some of the gestures that he makes in real life, and then trying to incorporate that into the character of Viola.
Right.
And finding the balance, really.
I swear, I have one truth, one bosom and one heart, and that no woman has, nor never none shall mistress be of it, save I alone. And so, do, good madam, nevermore will I my master's tears to you deplore. Yet come again!
Can you talk a little bit about about what it's like to try and make Shakespeare accessible, make him entertaining for the ever expanding theater audiences that the Guthrie is experiencing these days? What's it like to work at trying to make it live like that?
I don't think it's very hard to do.
Right.
I don't think it's very hard to do at all.
Right.
I think somehow Shakespeare just knew. Even his words today are so contemporary. The ideas are so contemporary.
Right.
You know, it's not a far stretch, aside from some of the archaic comedy that's hard to pull off. His ideas, I think, you know, they relate very much to the present and the time that we're living in. Shakespeare allows you to experience emotions on such a grand scale, and his ideas are so grand that it elevates you. The language elevates you, and it elevates you as a person. A blank, my lord. She never told her love, but let concealment like a worm in the bud feed on her damask cheek. She pined in thought, and with a green and yellow melancholy, she sat like Patience on a monument, smiling at grief. Was not this love indeed? We men may say more, swear more, but indeed our shows are more than will. For still we prove much in our vows, but little in our love.
Like to linger where it's shady, you, a lady, linger too. Maybe she'll sigh, maybe she'll cry, maybe she'll find somebody else by and by to sing to when the fool shady
Absolutely thrilled and delighted to be back here and to have this opportunity and the opportunity to work with this company again and under Joe Dowling. And from everything I've seen since I've been back here rehearsing, this theater is undergoing a renaissance, and it will culminate with the new theater on the, I was going to say bank side. I did that with Sam Wanamaker in England, but on the riverside, on the Mississippi. It's a very exciting time here. It always was in Minneapolis anyway, but it's a particularly exciting time here in the theater now, I think, under his tutelage. And I would beg all Minnesotans to support it again.